to the Bay City Independent School District School Board meeting, special call meeting on May 26th. The time is 6 p.m. and I'm going to call this meeting to order in the boardroom of the H.M. McAllister Administration Building. Please note this is a special call meeting and has been posted in the time and manner required. There is a quorum present with 7 trustees. Trustee Murray, would you please lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not receive any audience with patrons. Kaylin has lost for a second. So we will move past item number 3 to item number 4. The governmental body will go into a closed session as authorized by the Texas Government Code section 551.071, 551.087, and 551.129 that was provided in the notice of the meeting for consultation with legal counsel regarding the appraised value of limitation application for project 5 PCCSE related to a manufacturing project. We will also take item 12 at the same time while in closed session under Texas Government Code 551.074 personnel matters. It is 6:01 and we will enter into closed session. So the board will reconvene and take any action deemed necessary based on what was discussed in appraised value limitation application.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, we will take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0.
Another times I'm with the site selection company called Gold versus PCCS. This is a critical factor to them to locate the projects here. So we just appreciate your consideration of this tonight and support the company helping create the business here in Matthews County. I understand that a thorough interview in there for you guys. If you had any questions, have to answer those at this time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here and sticking around.
Absolutely. Just want to be here and say thank you guys for the consideration and just the new step. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Moving on to item 6, take possible action on a financial consulting agreement with Oak Casey related to the appraisal value limitation application for project offered by BCCSE. Is there a motion to be made?
I'll move to approve the financial consulting agreement with Milk Casey related to the appraised value limitation application for project offered by PCCSE.
Trustee Scarmine has made a motion. Is there a second to his motion? The motion has been made to have financial consulting agreement with Moat Casey related to the appraisal value limitation application for project offered by PCCSE. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to number 7. Take possible action to engage Walsh Gallegos, Trevino, Kyle, and Robinson as legal counsel related to the appraisal value limitation application for project offered by PCCSE. Is there a motion to be made?
I'll make a motion to engage Walsh Gallegos, Trevino, Kyle, Robinson as legal counsel related to the appraised value limitation application for project offered by PCCSE.
Trustee West has made a motion to engage Walsh Gallegos, Trevino, Robinson as legal counsel to appraise value limitation application for project offered by PCCSE. Is there a second to his motion?
I'll second.
The floor is now open for discussion. Is there any further comments? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Hearing none, the motion passes 7-0. We are going to take number 12, since we did discuss that in closed session. So we're going to move on to item 12, review and take possible action concerning superintendent's contract of employment. Is there a motion to be made? Hearing no motion, we will move back to number 8. Caitlin has the. Yes. Thank you so much for coming, Morgan.
Gosh, hey.
Be safe coming and going home. Moving on to item number 8, Bay City ISD pay system maintenance. Presenter is Mr. McLemore from TASC. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, trustees, and Dr. Scott, thanks for inviting us. Perfect. Right now, keep more compensation and the resources consultant for the Texas Association of School Boards, and some of you may remember from 3 years ago, he's a regional study. And brought material, COVID, I was all back different looking, but I'd be back out. This year we did a analyst maintenance, looking at your pay system, and look at your pay, compared market, and your structures compared to market is much smaller scale version of what I did 2-3 years ago, which was a full deep dive into looking at more internal equity of their incumbents, and this is a smaller scope. We go to the results for tonight, and just review these peer districts. We survey, I guess 600 participate in our survey this year, school districts. And so of those that we want to get, sometimes we can't get them all. They don't, some of them didn't go to our survey. What we see here is the list of those that did. There are asterisks that are on here, which means they didn't do our survey, but we wanted to have that data for teachers at least. So we went and got the teacher hiring schedule from those districts, so we can include them in the comparisons. And otherwise, X means that we had data for that district. Just a quick peek at your teacher demographics for as far as experience goes. What you're looking at here, this is a snapshot in time data of the 220 teachers and librarians we have data for. This just shows you the experience breakdown, the total experience. The dark blue is kind of the most relevant thing to probably point out. It's people with 0 years of experience, about 12% looks like. I'm sorry, I have 12 folks there, 5%. And the other thing is the green slice at the bottom of 6 to 10 years of experience. That's pretty much right in line with what we usually see. That's usually the 6 month space. So about half of your folks have 10 years of experience or less. Very normal. Nothing out of the ordinary. Everything looks pretty good. The pie chart you're looking at here represents the experience of your newly hired teachers and librarians this year, 27 that we had data on. And the dark blue there's the folks without any experience. You had 12 in that category, and the 1 to 5 years of experience. And so the majority of your people, a little over 75%, have 5 years or less of experience. That's a little out of the ordinary, but it's a small sample size, and that can change pretty drastically year to year, just because of the small sample size, to be honest. So let's get into your teacher comparison for your hiring schedule. This is showing you the blue line is the local market median, and orange is where Bay City is, and it's showing you 5 benchmark years, years 0, 5, 10, 15, and 20. Some districts do pay their teachers more than what that hiring schedule has. The vast majority are everyone's lockstep with their hiring schedule. So this is a good tool to compare your pay to others. And plus, this is when you're bringing in new people, this is what you are putting out there. So it's good to know how you compare. So you can see you are a little lower market at all the years 0, 5, and 10, and you get right at market at year 15, and you are above market at year 20, so you get stronger to market the more experience someone has.
So you aggregated all those districts together and averaged to get to the blue line?
Yes, sir. It's the median of those districts you saw for each year. That's right. By using the median, it controls for an average skew the data. There's like a yes, sir.
It seems like we made a lot of ground up over the last 3 years, and then now this looks like 3 years ago. Did something happen this year, last year?
So I have not had my hands on your data for the last 2 years, but just thinking back how I looked when I was at it before, I do recall it looking very similar. And I remember doing the X pattern. I said, hey, you have an X pattern here, which is kind of indicative of a district that faces increases off of base pay instead of market values. And I think you kind of see that X pattern shows you kind of a remnant of that. But House Bill 3 happened, I believe it was right after we did this, and teacher pay went up like 7.5% statewide on average. Starting salaries also went up about 7.8% in that year, about 2.5 years ago now. And so that might have been a kicker that happened to kind of suppress some gains you made. And moving forward, now the COVID year, a lot of, there was like a 1%. It was a big drastic shift. Usually market shifts 2%, and there was like a 1% shift that year upwards. And then this last year is a little bit more low, about 2%. So all that to say, it's hard to say what might be driving that. Not being 100% familiar with the increase amounts y'all paid for the last 2 years. I wouldn't see exactly what caused this, but it's definitely a factor of how strong the increases were versus what your market, your peer districts were doing. Y'all were in, 2 years ago, if y'all did more than 1%, y'all should gain on market a little bit. And this last year, you would have gone more than 2% to gain on market. So that's probably where that came from. But you're not that far behind. I mean, you're still, some districts lag market as a strategy. It's okay to lag market if you have other things going on like makeup, like strong teacher hour stipends, healthcare.
That's what has to do the one-time payments factor into this, because I think last year we made an intentional decision of only giving a smaller increase, and then later decided to add on as a one-time.
So there's a one-time payment, yeah, that doesn't carry over. Right?
No, it doesn't.
That's not calculated.
That's not
That's not
calculated.
calculated. This is just what your hiring schedule says. The part numbers y'all have longevity stipends for teachers still, we all.
No.
Okay. So this is a realistic, this year, we just got a survey data back. This time of year, we put out a survey. What we asked, hey, what are you expecting to get increase wise for the next school year? And for teachers, it's 3%. So if y'all give 3%, you're going to stay about at market. If you do less than that, you're going to lose a little ground. If you do more than that, you're going to gain. There's a little bit of regional differences with that statewide. Our survey showed about 3% teacher increase is going to be for the other groups. It's going to be 2.7, not too far different. So just kind of keep that in mind.
So if we do 3%, you're saying we'll stay below market, correct?
After the market, we'll stay basically the chart will look almost, it should look about the same. And you can never predict everything. They might have 3 or 4 districts that are in that peer group. Maybe they do a big strong increase like that. I'm from Hayes, CIC, which my kids go south of Austin. They just did a 7% increase for everybody. And they're seeing a few outlier districts that are going really strong. That might, so you might, that could, if that pops up around here in 2 or 3 districts, that could change what I'm saying. Should be around 3%. In high school, we have 5 models that were built for y'all for Big City, and so you have a lot of options there. And in the hiring schedule, there are some additional adjustments in the models that were put together by Janelle Miller to do the project for y'all this year. She added in some schedule adjustments where some teachers would get more in years 5 to 10 on some of the models, but she wanted to be a little bit more competitive in these earlier years. And so that's another way to go about this, is to throw more dollars at certain points to try to be closer to market. In this case, that's what you would 0.52. Good questions. Here are the numbers that drive the chart you just saw. So Bay City's at the top, and yes, sir.
On that last slide, we gave raises last year.
1%.
1%.
1%. We gave something.
Yeah.
1%.
Is this same chart that we have in our workbook from last year, that top bullet number for basic guys didn't change. The next bullet didn't change.
The 2020 pay and the 2021, 2022 pays are all the same on orange. You just shifted the blue line and it looks like it fell behind.
But on last year's, I have last year's board meeting, and the top bullet is for Bay City is 63,437.
And then this year it's 63,437.
And last year it was 59,434 and 59,453, so it went up $20. And then the next one is 55,419, the exact same. And then 51,000, so it went up $200.
So there is a change. I got a little scared. They're not identical.
Yeah,
There's
the
a
bottom
small
two went up
difference.
$200.
So that's kind of a mathematical oddity. The way the schedule is rebuilt is the increase amount that all the continuing teachers get is calculated as a percentage off the market average, which this year, for instance, I'm going to go back to that. For this year, for instance, it's 57,742. That's on the far right column. The third row, that's the market median salary. So if y'all do a 2% increase, everyone gets 2% of that. It's 3%, 3% times that, et cetera, prorated for duty days. So what it sounds like I said, I didn't work on this last year, but it sounds like if y'all did a modest 1% increase, some of the differences between years on your schedule, think about years difference between 1920, 14, 15, depending on how big of a difference that is between those experience levels, you could see some small differences like that because the pay increase was barely more than the difference between those 2 years. And that's kind of, I would have to like open up the Excel sheet, kind of show you how that works mathematically. But the way the schedule gets rebuilt is you just had, the increase last year was $600 for the teacher, and your starting rate, let's just say, was 45,000. Your one for next year would be 40,000 plus 600 is 40,600. But all that to say though, that it's a mathematical. I'll have to show you on Excel sheet when I can have, but it sounds like just the increase was so minor, and some of the differences between the steps were wider or really close to it, and so that affects how much shift you have on your schedule. Sometimes you can see that where you barely go more than $30, $40. Very good. These are good questions. I appreciate you asking us. So on this chart here, this is just showing you the numbers climate, like I mentioned. The key factor or figures here, that second to bottom row is the percent difference from market. You are anywhere from 97% of market at, for instance, year 0, 5, 10 to 102% at year 20. The new data on the far right that you don't see on the chart is your average comparison. Your average pay is 99%. So you're pretty much right in line with market for your overall pay. And that's good. That's where you want to be overall. I'm sure you want to be a little stronger earlier years. But that's pretty doable depending on which the budget allows. And at the bottom, you see those differences from market. So on average, you're about $1,400 below year 0, 5, year 10, $1,600 below, and you're above market by about $1,200 year 20. So these are these, I mentioned these other things that districts can do to augment pay for this group. I typically see with the district's lag market, it's kind of a general rule of thumb is that these stipends are strong to market. Pretty much are in line with that. Because you're not lagging really, but you see there are things like secondary math, secondary science, bilingual. Bay Cities is that middle column there, and you can see on the next to the median values, y'all are right at market or approaching market at all of these math and science going to they're lagging. They're $500 below. But if you look at how many of your districts are offering those, just 3 of 9, that's not a huge chunk of the peer group. So being that a little lagging there, it doesn't look like it's a huge issue out here. But y'all are at market or above for all the others. And let's look at your other pay groups. So your non-teachers, this is a pretty quick little snapshot showing you your administrative professionals. That's basically all of your people who are teachers. And the pay is at 99% of market. And there were 12 benchmarks that were compared for the size of a project. Clerical paraprofessional, you're 97% of market for your pay. And those all important minimums for those non-exempt jobs, you're right at 100% of market. With 10 jobs that we're comparing auxiliary, your pay is at 94% of market, and your minimums at 96% of market with 8 jobs compared. The jobs that are moving fastest market-wise right now is structural aids, and cafeteria worker, custodian, and campus level secretary or admin assistant, up through principal admin assistant. That market's moving really quickly right now. Anything like the historically $11 to $14 range is really moving fast. So we, Janelle got in the market with that starting rates, but it's moving fast. It's going to talk about the next 12 months with those types of jobs. The teacher pay is moving really quick right now too. That's important to remember. So recommendation 1, you see this before, improve your starting pay and improve your market. That just means getting your structure, your midpoints aligned, and reading the teacher hiring schedule. Now, quite a few options here for these pay increase percentages, 5 models, and they go hand in hand. There's a 1%, 2, 3, etc., 5%. The adopting the general pay increase, but maintaining your market position, the standard recommendations. So that means for team structure, like I mentioned, you calculate increase as a percentage of market median. For the other groups, the general increase, just to remind you, is calculated as a percentage of an employee's pay grade midpoint. So this is a kind of showing you where you would be with these different models, with district teachers, and this can make you scratch your head a little too, because just the way the proportionality is of how Excel displays. So model one, this is the 1% model, so you can see there's a green line, you can barely see, right? That's what that, it's showing you, you're basically not moving much of that model. Get a little stronger here, 0. Yes, sir.
Does the, this model is for 2021 and 2022, right? So all of the people that have already put like 5% raises and stuff in, that's not reflected in any of this data, right?
Well, this is showing if you adopt, that's kind of misleading, 2021, 22 up there. That's something, I usually don't use these slides, by the way, because they can create more questions than answers. But yeah, this is basically showing this model's adopted. This is what your comparison would look like based on this year's data. So, like the blue is still the market rate, the orange is where you are now, and the green is supposed to say show where you would be compared to market if this model.
But like a month ago, if somebody did a 5% raise, that would not be reflected.
No. Correct. That's correct. Okay, so here you can see Janelle added some extra adjustments to years 5 through 10. With the green, you can see we're starting to get a little space. And just keep in mind, the market's going to shift really 3%. So, and this is based on this year's data. So you're actually, this year, you're going to actually lose ground probably with a 2% increase. You're actually end up losing probably with 1% market. Shift. Model 3 is the 3% model, and you see you're getting a better aligned with market before market shift. And you can see model 4 and model 5. All right, so recommendation 3, apply additional adjustments to that teacher hiring schedule for just for models 1 through 4. I think it's supposed to say through 5. And the model 1, years 3 through 14 and 16 through 20 on the proposed hiring schedules were adjusted because the general pay increase is less than the experience differential between those. That's that mathematical weird stuff. You just have to see it to see how it works out in the schedule. But for models 2 and 4, adjustments were added to improve your market competitiveness for benchmark years 5 through 10. That just means increases. I'm making this up. $1,200. There are some that for those years it might be a couple $100 more than that. Because she wanted a better alignment market. And recommendation 4 is to provide extra adjustments as needed to address market differences and maintain equity for non-teachers. And in a nutshell, I just want to have everyone at the minimums, the proposed minimums. The pay increase doesn't get them there. Additional dollars on top of that to get them not just at the minimum, but also 1% above the minimum. You give them a little space between a new hire with similar experience. You might bring from outside. These strategic adjustments, that's a market adjustment. It looks at if any person is below 90% of midpoint, remember midpoint of any pay grade is calculated based on average market values for the jobs. So if you get an extra 1% of midpoint, if you're less than 90% of midpoint. And the placement scale adjustments, that aligns employee pay for think hourly jobs. They're still in the pay grade, but behind the scenes, it spreads payout by subtracting the midpoint from the minimum, chopping that difference up to 20. It's not a teacher hiring schedule. And so it's an internal equity piece for those jobs. So like I think custodial F3 workers, it's spacing them out based on their pay to respect that the years of pay that the district spread it. So people will get more money beyond the general increase. And that's why y'all do this with us. We have formulas that take up these extra adjustments. And recommendation 5, consider maintaining pay for employees already paid out above the maximum of their assigned pay grade. Controls pay equity, maintains the integrity of the pay system. And you might look at doing a one-time payment to move the general pay increase. I gotta be honest, no one's really a fan hands of this right now, the market is just so tight, right? We're encouraging you to maintain pay if they're above, but, it's, one extremely low right now, right? So we just have to point out zero is the idea to maintain pay for those overnight.
So can you put that in simple terms? So
We-
let me try. So freeze the employees who are at or above. Just offer them a one-time stipend or something, and it took their salary.
That's right, so let's say and my pay grade maximum is $28 an hour, and I'm at 30. I would not get the pay increase basically if you maintain pay. You give me the same amount as a one-time payment to reward your service, but it's not, there's no guarantee. You're not gonna get that the next year, it's just a one-time payment. Also, not just we have to pay increase to those folks, but Mission 6, or my good point now is I think this is in full pay systems review. So none of us look to look at down the road. We do additional benchmarking and do more recommendations for more complex adjustments to help address internal equity and specifically with professional plan, et cetera. But that's down the road. Just want to put that in there. But I've been doing what's called maintenance for the last few years. It's like 30% of what the full study costs. All right, here are the costs for these different models or auto. I'll talk about this and then just kind of show you the slides. But you can see it's broken down by teacher and librarians. You can see the additional admin professional, clerical professional, auxiliary, the general pay increases that first numbers column. And you can see that comes down to 1%. But then you have the adjustments to the right, and so that's where like I said, some people are going to get more because of those corrections and adjustments that were calculated that are out there. You can see that comes out to 81,000 here, or 0.3% budget impact. So model 1 is called a 1% model or increase, but you're actually it's a 1.4% budget impact. And so some models costing $329,000. Model 2. I'm just going to kind of cut the chase. It's 2.4% budget impact of $561,000. Model 3, the 3% model is going to cost about $816,000 or 3.4% budget impact. And model 4, 4.4% budget impact or a little over $1 million. And model 5, 5%, you're looking at it costs $1.3 million or 5.4% budget impact. So, you might keep that in mind too. You haven't been working with us a while, so maybe the adjustment costs go down. But, if I go to model 4, actually, no, model 3. So, model 3, I'm telling you, the market's going to shift about 3%. So, you're a little bit, overall, you're getting a little bit more than 3%, including adjustments. So, you're going to, a little bit of ground overall, but not a ton. Any questions on the models or anything else?
Models of those numbers are based on our current employment.
Yes, sir. So it's a snapshot in time of the employee data. Here's where to find us. That's their Janelle, her contact info, and me as well. If you have any other questions, thank you for having me.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Be safe going home. All right, moving on to agenda item number 9, presentation on recruiting/retention of teachers and administration within the district. Dr. Scott.
Surprise, yes.
So I'm at this well started. Presentation was in response to questions that we received regarding resignation data. And I want to thank the team for working extremely hard on this project and to bring some context to the numbers that the board actually received. So that was the basis for this presentation. So, Jordan. Yeah. And I'll turn it.
I will definitely serve those, though. We can go ahead and get started. So the first slide that you're going to see is we're going to talk about the 29 teachers that are represented, 29 teachers that have resigned with us since February of 22, all the way to May of 22. And I'm just going to touch a little bit on the pie chart. So if you look at the yellow, that is anybody that is retiring. We can obviously see from the gray that that is anybody that has a promotion or the other circumstances. And then the red is talking a little bit about, sorry, not see that far, misconduct, poor performance, or lack of aspect certification. That's kind of give you an idea of how those people.
What are there any questions on the chart?
So there were 29 teachers at the time, but some of those moved into other district positions.
That is correct.
Yes, and the large portion of that, as you've seen, is because one, the outstanding job that our counselors have done with evaluating, providing coaching back to teachers. So first of all, that we don't, we've actually used a lot of years to coach people. And no, education is not worth about it. If someone can find another opportunity in another area, and that's what we've actually done. Some of these things were mandatory. Can't keep people on staff who don't have the certification. And the last one was misconduct. So there are non-negotiable behaviors that we have from district employees, teachers. If they violate something that's in their agreement, in their contract with SBA, we have to move forward. System. And once again, as a district, we typically allow people to resign versus moving towards termination. But what we actually do is, whether they resign or we terminate them, we still send that information on to SBA. To the state that's required by law.
Sorry, so I believe on the next slide is asking what we're doing in order to hire qualified teachers. Some of the things that we currently do right now is we do offer a private stipend. And then the first one we offer is a $3,000 stipend to any secondary math teachers. The next is a $4,000 stipend that we offer to secondary bilingual. And then the fifth is a $5,000 sign-on incentive that we provide at the beginning of the school year. We offer 10 right now for the 21-22 school year. And then we also have yearly stipends that we offer multiple coaches, athletics, ETE teachers, performing arts, and special education. Another thing that we're doing this year, or not this year, that we do every year, is our Grow Your Own program. One thing that we did add this year is now we're accepting a master's degree, which is a huge perk, I think, for the district. And then we're also continuing to accept two paraprofessionals for teaching certifications and accepted 1 or 2 more candidates this semester. We also have the educational preparation program. Some people hear it as alternative program. You asked me when I first started, I had no clue what that meant, but it is a great asset for the district. We currently have 9 teachers in our alternative program. We also are prepping them to get SBEC certified, and then this year we also provided tutoring training, which has been a great asset for them to get fully certified. And then this year we also offered 13 emergency permits. Those are provided by the district. The district has to pay for those. And then the last, we continue to have a creative benefit package that is a huge first for the district.
Is it done? I don't think it's reading internet. That's why it won't reconnect. But maybe we'll just keep hitting sign in.
Okay.
Okay, so then marketing for recruitment, these are the things that we are proposing for implementing this summer and into the fall. So continuing to place ads in our 5 area newspapers for the support staff. For the teacher staff, we post on the Region 3 TASPA website, and that's kept up to date. Indeed, we also post post our positions there. Our district website is the primary way people apply, and Facebook. I'm gonna kind of jump, but Facebook and website, those are both things that we are revamping this summer. So for our website, we are looking at revamping the entire website, and in that we'll have a specific recruitment and portal. So I'll be managing that and trying to, if someone is interested in our district, kind of things that'll be directed specifically for the employees. And then Facebook, we're looking at paid ads. And we already do the shared public posts. Whenever we do that, we can see, I think the last post that we did for it, the last time I checked, it got like 65 shares and had thousands of views on it. So that's for all our open positions. And then, like I said, we're building the Bay City ISD website, and then creating an all-encompassing Bay City ISD staff booklet. I was able to, I know I haven't been here long, but I was able to attend a couple of job fairs and kind of see what other districts were doing to, I guess, attract candidates coming out of school. And a lot of them had, I guess, more hands-on materials that were appealing, talking about some of the benefits that they offer. It wasn't just a flyer. So I've already priced, and I'm looking at a 12-page mini booklet that tells a little bit about our district, what's going on, that I'll be able to use at job fairs, but also we can give out to our new hires to where they feel like they have a little bit better idea about what's going on in our district. It's not just kind of like ask the right people and then maybe you'll figure it out. So that's kind of double-sided for retention and recruitment. And I'll also, where I got the idea was another district's website, so we'll post it on our website so somebody can be like, wow, what Bay City's doing. Let's see, better advertise our staff development, benefits, and future goals. So I know that we have a lot of staff days that are required in the district, and Lisa Moya mentioned to me that there was one presentation one time where she heard that other districts were commenting what we do here at Bay City ISD and kind of, stealing our people after we staff them up really well. So I feel like if we can do a better job at highlighting what we're doing for these employees and these teachers, we'll attract some people to come back.
So
Remind them.
Yeah, let me jump in right here.
Yeah.
Because I know what district you're speaking about, and I won't mention it here tonight, but it's absolutely true. And it's based on the salary scale. This is hypothetical, so I don't have all of the product. So in year 3, in Bay City, we may make $2,000 a year on the scale. In year 4, we lose ground, and the district that you're talking about may gain it by 2,000 plus and keep it there for the next 4 years. Then they jump back to, or jump to another district in the year. So I get, and this probably going back to the next presentation, I get that we want to keep up with the market, but I'm encouraging the board to get out and try and lead, kind of drag the market ahead, because this is an example of what people do when you have roughly 4 or 5 school districts within a 20-mile drive. It takes no time to go and come get what money is, and that's actually absolutely right. If you look at where our teachers are going, come back, you can really determine it based on the salary stuff that I'm sorry.
No, you're right, but well spoken. Attend more university job fairs. We already have 4 lined up in the fall and 7 lined up in the spring. So that's unchanging there, but they are scheduled out. And then host a hiring day. This one will apply to not just our teachers, which I know that that's what this is addressing, but it'll be for all staff. We're hoping to implement something this summer where we can attract applicants who have already maybe applied but have some questions or are ready to apply to maybe a hiring day, either at the high school or here. I think in the past, it might have been 5+ years ago that they've done this before. It was at the admin building, and they said that it's kind of too small of a space, so we're looking at the high school for that one. And then create more relocation support. We've already gotten in touch with a company that's starting up here in Bay City and has received grants and all the things that are in play. And I think that they'll be a great resource on providing us with some information for people who pay to our district.
So that's a thing, let me that one down to, so not all location support as far as information goes, but some kind of financial support extended from our local. We'll usually met with them in the past, had a conversation about the housing here, and unless you already own your home, right, outright, housing here is more expensive, and rightfully so, because you're closer to the coast. So with, I can't imagine 20, 30, 24 college students to come and teach here and having to live on their own. So that's a factor that's going to impact whether or not we're able to attract and keep our best and brightest. If there's some kind of financial relief that we can get our partners, our local partners to commit to, at least for the first 2 years or however long that the teachers are with us, that would really be a big incentive with. And I've seen it work at other places.
So next is, does your plan include to use long-term or permanent substitute teachers? So this past year, we continue to use long-term substitutes in any of our unfilled vacant positions. We did end up having one long-term sub that we used for an uncertified, or this year to for an uncertified teacher position. We do have 11 staff members on temporary disability leave, or we did at that point where we did use some subs for those positions, along with 36 staff members on family medical leave. We currently have 3 SBEC certified teachers that we used in those long-term positions, and then we currently have hired 8 teachers across the campuses to fill those 22, 23 vacant positions, which I thought was fantastic. Along with, we have approximately 240 certified teachers on staff versus 85 substitute teachers.
Do we compensate our parents when they're in a long-term sub, or do they just pay for it? How does that work?
So your position, or
If you have a non-certified teacher and a long-term sub,
so if I'm answering your question correctly, I would think is for hiring some, are you saying like one of our instructional aides who did with a teaching position? They would be paid more than what they were as an instructional aide. I'm answering you.
Our
I'll let Lisa.
currently our parents may fill in for a half a day or if somebody has to leave, but I would check with Lisa, but I don't believe we have taken care of who are currently employed and put them in as a sub permanently for a long-term sub position. I don't believe that we have to do that. I'm not the chief HR, so I'll double check on that, but I don't believe that to be correct.
I think that's why.
Because we have those 85, how many substitutes did you say we have? 85 substitutes.
they're certified, that come in.
Now, that doesn't mean that they're certified substitutes, they may not be certified teachers.
Right.
Yeah, some of those, there's different levels of substitutes, level 1, 2, 3, 4. Some of them have bachelor's degrees at the higher level, some of them actually have teaching degrees, maybe retired, or maybe they had a baby and they decided they don't want to work full time, but they're willing to sub. But usually we pull from that pool.
But specifically for the unfilled positions, we only used one this past year. Oh, the next question was, have robust and valuable exit interviews been given for each of those departures? So currently what we do, and to my knowledge, what we're going to continue to do is offer an exit interview survey that's sent out to any employee that's resigning. They're allowed to have the opportunity to be anonymous when they do it. And this past year of the employees that were sent the survey, 39 participated. And continuing that, if you're not going to use it, then explain why we are not using best practices regarding exit interviews. So we pulled that survey, and it's been implemented for several years now, off the TASB survey. So all the questions are not just questions that we came up with. So we are using best practices in that way. Historically, the staff members that are resigning have wanted to be kept anonymous. However, at the campus level, and they have implemented this, if there is an employee leaving and the principal feels like an exit interview should be offered or conducted, then they are free to do that and have utilized that. Any questions? Okay.
So the next question we had was from the top down, including the leadership team, what plans are in place and being implemented in order to improve the culture and morale? So prior to 2017, no metrics to measure climate and morale and no formalized training for employees in creating healthy organization was present in Bay City ISD. That was just something that we just told PAC. There was no formal structure for that. When Dr. Scott arrived in spring 2017, Bay City ISD contracted with national consultant, organizational health consultants for annual metrics and ongoing professional development coaching for campus administrators and teacher leaders. Those teacher leaders are part of the instructional leadership team of each campus. So at elementary, you're looking at, those are the team leaders or grade level leaders. At secondary, those are usually the department chairs. Okay. What this has been comprised of is annual anonymous OHI survey for all staff to respond to questions. And those questions assess the 10 dimensions of a healthy organization, according to OHI research. And we have great participation, 90% participation rate in that. Our campus administrative teams participate in data engagement conferences and strategic development sessions with the consultant. So they not only look at their data, but that they, as a campus administrative team, have a conference as to analyzing why do you think it looks like this? What are some processes and procedures and things that are happening on campus that may have contributed to this, and how can we improve it? Then campus instructional leadership teams, administrators, counselors, teacher leaders participate in a 2-day professional development and planning session for the coming academic year. So that's where those teacher leaders have the opportunity to sit down with their administrators, and they're making a collaborative plan on how do we want to get better? What can we do to improve those 10 dimensions? Then there are coaching and follow-up visits with campus teams as needed throughout the year with the consultants. Oops, I'm sorry. So just a reminder that the 10 dimensions of organizational health are here for you. Goal-focused communication, optimal power equalization, resource utilization, cohesiveness, morale, innovativeness, autonomy, adaptation, and problem-solving adequacy. I highlighted 3 of those in red because research shows us that as with rigor and relevance, a commitment to demonstrate positive behavior and attitudes is a function of what they call the big 3. When we're trained, those are called the big 3. If you can increase goal focus, cohesiveness, and adaptation, they automatically have a positive effect on the other 7 dimensions, if that makes sense. Any questions about that? Sorry. Thank you. And then what you're going to see in our last slide, this is these are our OHI scores for our district. The red bar that you see is 2017. The blue bar is actually the score that was taken this spring. Those surveys were done in March, and we just received those results. And the dimensions that you see underneath of each bar are the ones that I just reviewed with you. You'll see the top 3, as I call them, the big 3. Goal focus is the first bar. If you work your way over, you'll see cohesiveness kind of in the middle of that graph, COH. And then if you work over, next to the last bar is adaptation. So you can see how we've grown from 2017 until currently. And actually, we're going to be undertaking that team training process June 6th and 7th here in Bay City. Do you have any questions about the organizational health scores?
So, if I may, I have a comment. I just want to commend the teachers and the principals on first of all, the principals for their leadership in leading this work on their campus. I will tell you, research says that the overall climate and culture and morale of the school district is based on a person's experience with their own campus. So thank you all for the work you do on each of our campuses to improve overall climate and culture of the district here. Thank you all for the presentations and that you provided to us.
Any questions about any of the data, Mr. Murray?
So it's clearly an improvement, but how does the percentile work? Just for goal focus, it was 25% in 2017, now it's 55%. What is that?
I am not an organizational goal consultant. I would need Dr. Cook to explain to you what those
Are you
percentiles
trying to get
are.
to 100?
I'm sorry, I don't know what the percentiles are.
Time to explain it. Just-
Okay.
You're actually trying to grow. Yes, optimally 100 would be there. I seriously doubt that you actually about to get there in the organization size. But to have this percentage of increase over the past 5 years, over the past 5 years, it's incredible. And what's done is the teachers and campus level staffs are giving anonymous surveys that they actually fill out. The survey is reliable, statistically significant, and all those things that's been vetted. And then they're not just, basic questions. You may have 3 or 4 that are stated different ways to get down to the point of each one of these dimensions. And again, principals may be able to speak to this, but we're giving those pre and post surveys to their campuses and to employees to measure those things. As far as central administration, last year, I participated in my direct reports were able to get me feedback across the board. They would get me feedback. And I will honestly say that the data are reliable in the survey as well, because what came up for me actually kind of bore out in how I would interact with the schools and some of the coaching feedback, which gave me an area and my team an area in which to better support schools.
And I just want to say this is a phenomenal opportunity for our schools, because these consultants not only work across the state in Texas, from El Paso to Odessa to Wichita Falls and everywhere in between, but across the country. And specializing in school organizational health. So it's been a great experience. I think the principals always look forward to it.
And one thing, we turn this around to the whole staff, and I don't present it, the leadership team does. So after we go through the June 6th and 7th conference, we all basically turn it around. And so when the teachers come back in August, we revisit it and talk about it. And throughout the whole year, Ms. Glenn has bought us different charts and everything. And so when we're making decisions about the campus and making decisions, we're trying to get interdependently. No one's working in their own, silo. It's not about a classroom. It's not about a grade level. I might want to do things one way, but it's about the autonomy of the whole school. And that's one thing that's really changed our mindset is it's not about a grade level. It's about everyone. So we look at it throughout the whole year. It's not just like a one and done type of thing.
So the percentages, so that represents, I guess, is that represent total body of staff body, or is that, we're not sure.
I'm sorry.
What the percentage represents actually, we're not sure.
It's a percentile score. Now, are we averaged with other schools, or I couldn't explain that to you. I don't know what the numbers mean. I just always know that we're looking for growth. The charts that Ms. Wendell's talking about, that OHI uses, it's a very simple system, a red, yellow, green system. So of course, we always want to move up the system to green. And I can tell you that the goal focus for our district, the percentile, I guess, falls within the 55% range, but we are actually on the green on the chart, which is high performing and goal focus. So please, I'm not a mathematician. I can't tell you what that percentile is.
Question, norms are created in comparison to other schools.
And our goal is always to get to that top green corner, and that's where we're moving.
trustee Tenet, it is just certified teachers. It's not everyone on the campus.
And for our district right there, that's it, there's 98% participation rate. So majority of our folks, they fill it out.
And there's a very specific process for those where actually the principal is not even present in the room in those surveys. A staff leader, they elect a teacher leader to administer the survey, hand it out, pick them up, put them in a sealed envelope, they go to OHI, they score them and send us the results. So it's very anonymous.
Questions or comments? There's a lot of sections on here that have some really good growth. One of them that I guess I'm kind of wishing I would have seen more in is we've talked a lot about morale, kind of beating around with that. And it seems like that's like the smallest growth section on the whole chart. I wish that we could have done a little more there. I know that we are doing stuff, you know, I know we have a lot of works. I'm just wishing that we would see a little more fruit to our labor.
Sure. I will share with you what Dr. Cook shared with us as a team, because that's our hope also. But one of the things he shared with us is that he works with so many districts across the state of Texas, that with the COVID last year and all the changes with remote, and then the high stakes accountability they came back into play this year, with teachers being appraised again through T-tests, which they had not been appraised in the last 2 years during COVID. And then the stress of House Bill 4545, he saw many districts actually dip in morale. So we were thrilled that we've at least maintained and made a little bit of stride. But that's also what he's teaching us as we increase in goal focus, cohesiveness, and that adaptation, it's going to have a positive effect on some of those other indicators as well.
The words that struck me when I read this one and said from the top there. So I'm assuming that you're talking board.
I didn't ask that question, I don't remember it, but I'm assuming that.
And I'm assuming that. So that's just my assumption. When you say top there, because I think we are part of that group. But the one thing that I did notice on here, and it was during the hiring process that I got to witness, when they were at, I think it's Lamar ISD, and they did their hiring job fairs during the week. And if a teacher had applied for those positions, they did online interviews. And they got to actually talk to the HR. And the HR pretty much guaranteed them after a couple of days of digesting if they had a position. And I thought that was really neat, and that was something that maybe we can think about doing. You know, say that Lisa cannot make all of them. I can't make that job fair during the week, but I'm assured that I can go online and hit the more ISD, and I can do an online interview. So I thought that was a plus and something that we made there. The other thing that I noticed that with the long-term subs, I think my only pet peeve would be when we do have long-term subs, somehow we need to notify parents that you have a long-term sub in there, especially when you get into the secondary level. Our kids don't talk to us anymore. Elementary, they'll run home and say, oh, we had a sub in it. High school could care less. But then you find out at the end of a reporting period that it's been a long-term sub placed in the classroom. So I think the communication with parents, when we do the long-term subbing, that parents would be notified. That was the one thing, and that may not be a big deal to anyone else, but it was to me. And then the last thing that on TASB, that we are on point with the big three. If you get any of the TASB information, those three areas, those big three that you mentioned, is always on TASB. So I think that that's that for us for all now. And then I did read into the notice that wasn't mentioned here, but this would be tagged on it, because it said, I don't want to hear anything about COVID. You cannot X out COVID. COVID is real. And, it had a deep effect on us as educators and also on the kids. Because the kindergarten classes that we have now was the class that COVID hit. So some of those kids are coming to us that has never had a classroom setting or never had someone else teaching. They were at home with us. So you have teachers working extra hard to try to bring those kids up. So when you decided, I don't want to hear anything about COVID, you cannot exit out because COVID was there and it was real. And as educators, we are dealing with that every single day in the classroom. And the other thing that I noticed that when you talk about morale, and I am going to point to myself, and I know that the people in the audience, when they are looking at us starting top down, they are noticing things. Even in the community, when people don't know who I am, they begin a conversation. The first thing they'll say to me is that, oh, you look familiar, but I don't know where, and I'll let them talk. And the first thing they say, oh, that student board is a joke. We have to do better. Whether we have just teachers out there in the audience looking at us, or we have a room full of other people, we have to first show that there's some togetherness, there's some kind of cohesiveness with us, but we are not. And I know I'm not. I struggle. So when you look at my face, you see exactly what you see. I'm not happy. But we have to work at that when we talk top down. We can't exclude this board when we're talking about morale, because I think it begins with us. But I do applaud you when you say on Facebook that we are going to be more visible. I have noticed that we do things, and I try hard to keep sharing, because if I have 100 flyers, if I'm sharing mine, they're going to see it, and someone else comes behind and share. And Ms. Wendell, we do that well. We tag and we share. And I think that's where we'll get the notoriety. So I think if we will post that, I think we'll be a better organization as well. So everything here, I was so happy to see this particular thing on the school board agenda, and those things were addressed, and hopefully everybody goes back with a better mindset than what we had coming in. So thank you all for everything that you did.
Anything else? Thank you all so much. That answered a lot of questions and great information. Really appreciate you. All right, moving on to item 10, 2022-2023 summary budget review discussion, possible employee increase for 2022-2023 by Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. Good evening, all. Okay, first slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit about ESSER funds in this budget. We're gonna, after on decide doing a raise or what the raise is going to be, and I'll fold that amount into the budget. So then on February 6th, when we have our budget board meeting, then I'll present the budget with the raises in it. At that point, we'll actually approve the budget for this.
On June 6th.
Yeah, that's February. I said on February. I apologize. So on June, sorry. Anyway, the ESSER in the 2022-23 budget. ESSER stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. Those were funds that were funneled to the school districts in the state of Texas due to the fact that COVID crisis. And so, now ESSER two funds projected to supplant and or support this budget for proposing the amount of ESSER two funds are $2,275,000, and the amount of ESSER three funds are $2,406,000. Included in the local budget, the ESSER funds are not included. And it also included in this budget, there's Chapter 313 agreements for the current year estimated payments that we'll receive in January of this year for Mo Casey and Associates. They estimated it to be $693,700. Those are payments that we're going to receive in this next school year. And then over the next 5 years, this was also prepared by Mo Casey for us for 2022-23, which I just said, $693,000, 23-24, $646,000, 24-25, $600,000, 25-26, $554,000, and then 2026-27, Rome America will kick in, and we'll get a revenue loss payment for that year, and that amount will be $2.9 million for that particular year. And then,
Before you go on, Rick, yes, sir, just to clarify, Chapter 313 payments are in the budget you're proposing, but ESSER funds are not in there yet.
correct, the Chapter 313 payments are in the budget. They're going to be highlighted on the next screen, so it'll show you the revenue for the budget, and then, in other words, on this particular screen, shows on the left side where we would end up with no raise, and across the top would be model 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so total M&O revenue for the 313 revenue is $34,420,000. But I'm highlighting the Chapter 313 revenue so y'all can see the impact for next year, going next year. And so therefore, the total expenditures that were estimated with no raise factored in right now is $35,287,000, which would be a deficit of $173,000 right at this moment. Then we factor in the models on model 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which as we just assumed you all, then the bottom line is that you would start out with like a $9.8 million fund balance and end up with a $7.8 million fund balance, depending on the models. Now, these are all projections, estimates. It's a budget, so therefore, it's our best estimate at this point. Things change, but then we'll have our certified fund balance after the audit, not until August or September, but this is the way we go each year. We always estimate where I feel like we were going to be, with our calculations. And so, in the optimum fund balance, as we talked before, is approximately $12 million.
All things equal, if the ESSER funds come in, then the fund balance would just have every expense and every stream of revenue.
Exactly.
We would just add that to the fund balance for next year.
Correct.
Could we increase the fund balance if we use $4.something million of ESSER funds in place of something in the budget in one of these three scenarios?
Yes, but I mean, the fund balance, the ESSER funds are not included in this budget, so therefore they're being paid. The ESSER funds are used for, ESSER 2 is used for,
That will place things in the budget and that frees money up
right.
in other places.
So, yes, sir. So like ESSER 2 funds currently right now, the groups that are being paid, school principals and APs are being paid out of ESSER 2, the IT department and the police department going forward. That's for using ESSER 2 funds. And ESSER 3 funds are being used to support SCE program or the CompEd program. So there's teachers being paid out of that fund, nurses, counselors, and then also there's some curriculum programs that we're paying ESSER 2 funds out of. So
So in theory, we could adopt one of these raise models and have a neutral budget by using ESSER funds.
No, no. This budget that we're proposing is a local budget. It does not have ESSER funds factored in. ESSer funds are taken out of the local budget in the sense that it's a different fund and therefore it's money that we're spending. But this is where the local budget is without including ESSer funds. Does that make any sense?
If I can add to that, the ESSER funds aren't in there, but that also means what we're currently spending in ESSER is not in there.
Oh.
So if we're spending it on administrators and counselors, they're not in that budget. So it's, you've taken the whole ESSER funds and the ESSER expenditures, what we're spending it on is not accounted for there.
Exactly.
So our actual expenditures are closer to 40 million.
Yes. Which is approximately what we adopted this last year for the total budget that we adopted was 40 million. Really.
So, Rick, I remember we budgeted for key group expenses.
Right.
And so in theory, that surplus that we didn't use rolled into that fund balance.
Yes.
Or projected fund balance.
Yes. And it's third, yes, right.
And so is your NO inclusive of our newly determined debt?
Yes, yes, it is, correct. There, now, I'll flip to the last schedule so you can see that you're correct. For example, on the debt service that we'll be paying for next year, it includes the bond, okay, an M&O function 71, that's the local debt that we pay out of M&O. And so included in there for next year, we'll begin paying for our maintenance tax notes that we're going to adopt or approve on June 6th meeting. The payment for next year is $341,000, which we didn't have this year. So that's in this new budget. And then and the other items.
So before a pay raise, any pay raise, we're gonna be 172. Projected.
Yeah, sure. Yes. And so, and then on the interest in sinking, which is the amount we interest in sinking taxes, which are actually 45 cents. We're using that to pay our bonded debt. And our bonded debt payment for 22-23 is $7,207,000. And so we're going to collect, we're projecting to collect just a little bit over that, $7,247,000. We actually have a fund balance estimated in INS of 2.9 million. And then at the end of this year, that we're just complete. So what that means is we'll do the calculation when the certified values come in with the tax assessor collector, and then we'll come up with a debt rate. And I'm predicting 45 cents, but it could be less depending on how it all works out. We always kind of estimate what we think it's going to be.
So one thing that our team is talking about, and I don't think we're gonna have to talk about this extensively, is having a deeper dive with the honors. Because these are all projections. What would I kind of charge for it? We're gonna make it a point to see, based on our annual projection, what ends up being actual at the end. And to be honest with you, I've never had that conversation with the auditors. So if we could look at what the actual has been, like spot on, whether we've been extremely conservative and we end up with money that are going to go low.
Right.
We just need to see that and have this conversation with the auditors.
Right. And we can work on like you're saying, a comparison from what we budgeted, what we ended up over a period of time going back. I mean, they tell us that when year to year, when he does the review, the audit, whenever it comes, and when he or she comes to visit, we all visit the audit for the current year and the prior year. You can see where the budget was and where we ended up. But Dr. Scott, it would be great information to be able to look back and see, okay, do we normally not spend our whole budget, or do we? So, and really and truly, all CFOs or business managers are extremely conservative, because the worst thing that can happen is if I say, okay, it's gonna be a $12 million fund balance, it comes in to be a $10 million fund balance, then that's not a good thing for me, you know, or for this. So then it comes in, and it's just kind of a deal, but I understand what Dr. Scott's saying. You know, we need to find some on it and deal.
It's hard to look at this scenario that where you haven't done anything and it's already below where we were. And we're saying that we need to get to $12 million. So, I don't-
Can we get that data by the June meeting? Is that like, because thinking about what you're saying, you know, if our biggest expense is actually personnel, and if we're short on personnel, because we have a hiring crisis, we've got to have free money in the budget that we're technically rolling over. That, you know, as you said, worst case scenario, and your ADA number is 93 point whatever, and I know you're always very conservative on that number as well, rightfully so, because you never know what the school year is going to present.
On the ADA, for example, the current year that we're in, per se, haven't calculated completely, but they're holding this harmless for the first part of the school year, as far as the ADA is concerned. And at the end, when we settle up, that'll help some. So,
Right, but next year they're not holding harmless, right? You're on your
you wouldn't be, I mean, I don't think it would, I mean, right now, there wouldn't be a whole harmless thing.
So one of your points here, when you said that we're short staff. I want to put that kind of thing in context. What that means. I mean, short this year or have consistently been lacking certified staff, and then to look at the trend data, because I don't want the assumption to be, well, we have a few vacancies here, so there's a pot of money sitting there. To Rick's point, doesn't really work like that. But if you start looking at the actual FTEs, you can really look at those and kind of gauge it based on class sizes, and our class sizes have not increased significantly over the past almost 100 years. Well, I mean, a lot of movement data. But again, these are projections. I think that it would do us all well if we had the actuals and then looking at the actuals over a few years. But I don't think they're ready to do that. I think that Margaret's class and have to.
Well, and also, it's gonna be a pretty big feat to get when follow the raise into the system, you know, by the June 6th date. I mean, it's gonna work, but I'm just saying it real quick, turn around from the approval of the raise to get it all into the system as far as on each function and what the raise will impact the budget. So it's gonna be, I mean, we're doing it and it's great, and it's wonderful, but usually we would have more time, but I mean, I've got a plan, I'll get it all done, so.
So I would just, if I may, just point the board's attention to the chapter 13, revenue 694, and you can go over to, and just take these two numbers and go to model 5, the 1.2. Your 313 payment for next year is going to pay roughly 55% of the rates. I make a little more.
That's true. Especially, correct. And actually, I look forward to the day when we don't have this. Even though I'm happy to have it, it's wonderful, and we've been able to do some things that we would never be able to do as far as curriculum and things like that. But I'm just saying, as far as calculating, it's a,
And one more nugget for the board, if we're not, let you have it, last year, a couple of years ago, got the extra funds. The state reduced our allotment by $2.3 million. So keep bear that in mind, that the state reduced some of its funding,
Right.
but they don't have its funds to actually spend.
2.33 million. And then the question would be, which is, you know, they have said, and we all assume that that they'll get back. I mean, I feel 100%, 90%, 95% they'll get it back going forward, but.
So I know the the question that I have is talking about a raise, does it need to be an across the board, we do this percent, or do we need to look at, like the recommendation was in C, it's 0 to 5 years, we need to bump them up to, I don't know, 6, does that make, so where it's not just an across the board 5% or across the board 3%, but we look at actual where they are.
Okay, I think that we need to follow the tasking model because it's based upon the, like for the teachers, it's based upon your group and some meetings and you're actually.
So let me respond to that.
Yes.
That's it, it would be good for the funding model and to statement system for grants we're trying to do. We're also running and if you want to give a certain section of employees or raise that's higher than the other employees. How do you actually justify that just to keep the scale kind of reliable? You can do it, which is why I push Keith when he made that point about freezing some of the people. It happens in other school districts. I've seen it happen in other school districts. Celebrate.
I've been in this district committee. That's when we started doing that.
Right.
But back to this, we was talking about the SR funds, and they're not calculating it into this budget, into this presentation. So we was to guesstimate, and step out and say, across the board, we can give a 5% raise. Knowing that we have ESSER money over there, can that be used that we have? And I'm not asking that question right. When you were talking, you said something about supporting, I'm not a main question, but when you mentioned that, I wanted to know if we just throwing out numbers, if we went there, if we have money in the ESSER funds now, that we can go on and step out and make that call.
So ESSER funds can't be used specifically just for a pay increase. And the ESSER funds that we have are already allocated to pay for certain salaries. So, you know, what we did very strategically as a team is 20% of ESSER funds have to be used for learning loss. That's a requirement. So over 3 years, when we received $10 million in ESSER, that's basically $2 million that has to be spent on learning loss. Well, there are programs that the state already gives us funds for, state compensatory education, that is specifically for learning loss. So what we did, rather than some districts went out and took that ESSER funds and they created more positions and they created more programs. We did not do that. We took what we had to spend because we have a spending threshold in SCE and we paid for it with ESSER funds. We just took SCE and moved it to ESSER, which freed up some of that local money then to take care of the budget deficit. So those funds are already allocated for positions and learning loss programs that are required. I did want to clarify something. I think what Jill was asking on the tasking models where we spoke about, for example, model 1, 2% GPI plus some adjustments in there. what you see in there, the models include those adjustments. Where you're right sizing, there are a couple of years that are further off from the midpoint, but it's already calculated into that. If you look at your board book, it'll show you model 3 is like 3% of the market median, plus the adjustments that are needed for those ones that are farther away from the midpoint.
Thank you.
One last point. The data that we're comparing it to does not include the other increases from other school districts. So, to each point, even if you do 3, it's still gonna be chasing people high. If you do 5, you may only go above 1.
Yeah.
Because you're so far behind.
So I remember at some point, one of the ratings that were rated against mattered by having a fund balance and above some amount. It was a school first rating. Okay, so is that a, that's the question I guess, is that an important factor that we need to consider? I mean, you're showing us options that are nowhere near getting us to optimum fund balance. So school first rating is an important factor.
You want to answer?
Well, I mean, it's
I
important
would-
to, go ahead.
I mean, in my opinion, yes and no. I mean, yes and no, because I'm absolutely somebody who does the budget very conservative now. But then too, the rating is coverage and perception for some people, everything. So if the neighbors are getting A's and you're getting a B, then there may be some assumption out there. Honestly, it doesn't impact anything that we get from the state.
Correct.
But you always want to get an
All right.
Like, it doesn't impact borrowing power or anything like that. It's just.
No, it does not. Right. I mean, I learned that with those schools.
I mean, as far as perception goes, we can either worry about our rating or we can worry about our salary. So it's.
Yeah.
Very good point. Trey.
Yeah.
It's true.
How do we?
So,
Wait, Matt has 2 more questions.
so I don't think anybody in this room doesn't want to give raises. So the second part of my question is, do we feel, and this is the proverbial we, that our expense line, our $35 million worth of expenses has been scrubbed? You got 2 levers to pull here. You got to lower expenses or get more money. And we're not going to get more money unless we change assumptions. So let's just assume assumptions stay the same. Sure, that 35 million represents a reasonable level of staffing, whatever.
Good times instead of wants.
Right, needs instead of wants is where I'm getting to. Because if we lower that, we're freed up to get a 5% raise.
I mean,
And I'm not saying we need to eliminate staffing. I'm asking, I mean, those are the 2 levers
As
to
a
pull.
district.
right, in other words, in
So-
some places, it's expensive, but we can
Yeah.
Then we
lower
can
the cost.
cut that.
So the largest part of our budget is staffing.
Yeah.
In our district, when Dr. Scott came in 5 years ago, we were overstaffed. We had classes sometimes with 10 and 11 students in it. And we went through a process with a group called Cardonics that comes in and helps us analyze our staffing patterns. Because what was happening prior to that, our staffing was going up and our enrollment was going down. So what we did at that time, we looked at, we've gone through that process. Every year they do a staff analysis for us that looks at course requests, how many students in a class, and how many staff do you need. And we're sitting like, right, we went through personnel meetings with each campus, and we're sitting right where we need to be as far as class sizes and teacher staffing. But remember, the board has added some positions like 5 behavior specialists, so that's been an increase there. You know, those things have increased, as well as the cost of fuel, cost of electricity. You know, those are the other major expenses in our budget. When you look at all the other expenses, it's a pretty small percentage of that $35 million. The biggest part of it is fuel, electricity, maintain your building and staff.
There's lots of utilities and all that, and plus that's a half, in other words,
not a whole lot you can do about lowering that, except for that we did enter into an agreement with the State Energy Conservation Office, SECO, at the high school to fix their controls. So we don't know the real impact of those, but it's projected by the state that we'll see extra funds because of that, because of what y'all have done. So that should help, but you can't really predict because we don't have any data yet. We haven't received any savings on the electricity. We actually spend just on electricity, we spend about $1.2 million a year.
I can tell you the majority of costs for like professional development, instructional materials, those are covered through grants.
Yeah.
Through title grants, we have the Effective Schools Focus grant this year. We've got the T-Class grant, which is paying for almost all of our tutoring expenses. So really the bulk of that comes from federal funds and it's in this budget. It's minimal.
On the other thing, that you're gonna reach a point here that the revenues, your income's not gonna change, and our expenses are gonna continue to grow. Unless we attract more students. It's really all we're. Because the only, besides the 313, which is over and above all this stuff. Right. The only way you can get money is with the state formula is more ADA. Yeah. And then we're hoping also that our ADA the next year will go back to where it used to be more.
I just want to ask one more question about the ESSER funds. When the ESSER funds go away, those expenses come back in the budget because those are positions that we didn't create. So in theory, without the 4-point-something million in ESSER funds, the 600,000 in 313 revenue and the 172,000 deficit, but we're actually at $5 million of deficit. And a couple of years ago, we had a $12.5 million fund budget, and it was 10 something. Now it's 9 something, and whatever we're going to adopt today is going to take it to either 8 or 7. With a $5 million deficit budget, it's going to get really squirrely in a couple of years.
Because last year when you adopted a budget, at that time we didn't have ESSER yet. ESSER 3 didn't come into play. We didn't have any allocation until late July. So your budget looked like originally you adopted a 3.98 deficit budget last year. That deficit was cut down because when we were awarded ESSER, we took quite a bit of that out. So we moved it into ESSER.
But at the same time, Rick already said that whenever we get those ESSER funds, we lost some of our state funds. So yes, we'll be losing ESSER funds and those things will come back to the fold, but we should also get more money from the other end.
And another thing that impacts the budget quite a bit is the fact that you'll see when we present what I presented is that the insurance costs, property insurance costs for the new buildings being in tier 1, all the disasters that have happened in the United States, as you know, with your insurance you're paying, ours is, it's like our insurance bill is $1.2 million a year for property insurance, which is really what they used to call a fire policy. It's property is like insured against damage on a hurricane. So we have a great policy. We have a great agent that we work with out of Houston. It's one of the largest in the United States that insures numerous, or not insured, but they broker numerous school districts. And so they actually went to the market and checked with like 25 different, maybe 30 different carriers, and we got the best price market. It's still $1.2 million for years ago. Not that many, from maybe 3. Used to pay around 600,000, but a lot of it has to do because they have all the facilities.
Rick, are you? I got one more. I'm looking, I'm trying to figure out which ways to do, and these numbers don't add up to me, so. Adding 329,000 to the budget is a $500,000 deficit. But if you just increase that by only 240,000, somehow we have a 900 extra $1,000 deficit. But then all the other columns add up, so adding 200 adds 200, add 200, adds 200, add 200, adds 200. Why does it go from 500 to 1.4 million on from tab one? Like, is this on a spreadsheet? Is there a math formula? You see what I mean?
Yeah, you talk about the raises.
Yeah, it doesn't add, the math doesn't work.
Okay, that's, okay.
So the model one, the model two, the giant jump. Here's your base number, and it's the same all the way across.
Yes.
And then you have 172,000 dollars. So you add 329, and you add 329 with the deficit, you got a deficit. But if you only increase that by 240, your deficit should only increase by 240.
Yeah, I've got some.
And it works here, because here's two something, and there's two something, there's two something, there's two something,
Now,
there's two something, and there's two something. This jump is almost a.
Okay, I apologize, I got it here. It's fine.
So, real quick,
So if all that scaled down, then this is a little bit easier.
Right, so-
I missed it.
our agenda says that we can take possible action. We can table this, fix this, and bring it back June sixth to talk about a raise, if that is something that wants to be entertained by the board, instead of moving forward with determining a raise this evening. So that way it gives Rick more time, he can ask any more questions now that we've seen it and had a conversation if we have questions. But I wanted to throw that out there. Matt, I know you said you had one more question.
Yeah, I feel like that's the right answer, because I can't, it's a very, I'm totally following you, but I gotta like re-see it after the numbers.
Right. So do we want to go that route, Priscilla?
Yes, I think that we need to, because it's something happening in that area.
Right.
We really cannot jump on it all.
Right. Right.
So I wish if we could go back and look at those numbers, see what
It is a quick.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just at 35.
So-
I think a 5% rate is only 1.4, I don't think it's 2.1.
it's not.
So do we want to,
What, I mean,
Does
I'll make a
does
motion.
someone want to make a motion to table
I could
this?
also, I mean, I think it's not, okay, so. I mean, I can tell you what,
Are y'all comfortable doing that, or do you just want to table it?
We can table it, but.
I would like to hear that, but I think we should table it. I think there's too much uncertainty across this table to be able to make a decision this evening on a pay raise.
June sixth, give them time to hash out all these, so that we can have some actuals in. Right now, we don't have that one that trustee Sutherland saying, everything else matches with that. So we need to see what's on that one and actually have the numbers.
Okay, so trustee Robinson has made a motion to table this discussion to June sixth, so we can
1.2 plus 2.
have
Yeah.
better information.
I apologize.
That's okay. So the motion has been seconded, so we have a motion on the table to table this discussion to the June sixth meeting and update this record, this spreadsheet, and get other questions answered to come back and make a more educated decision in June sixth. All those in favor say aye. Oh, we do, well, we
I
can
just have
just,
one thing.
is there any more discussion? Sorry.
Would anybody else like to see the effect of a different ADA rate on the budget? I think that would be useful information.
So how about if there's more questions, we can, if you, Dr.
We can
Sparta, you
follow those
okay if we
Yeah.
email them to you, whatever the question is, that type of,
And the ADA rate was easier, was a higher rate, in other words, like it's 93.61%. That's a higher rate than what we are right now.
currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
it's essentially the actual audited results to how we did the release for last year.
So they're auditing right now, I don't know what they've done.
Or the prior years, I guess prior years.
It's probably not a great,
I'm just curious.
more discussion? So we have a motion and a second to table this item for the increase of pay raises for 22-23 to the June 6th meeting. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes 7-0. Okay.
Thanks,
So,
Rick.
thank you, Rick.
Well, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Thank you. We appreciate the information.
Great, so on June sixth, we won't be adopting the budget.
Yeah. Probably not.
Well, no, because I was there.
You have to, yeah.
I have to. Hold these.
When's the deadline?
June 22nd. Something like that.
So it'd have to be a meeting the week of the 13th through the 17th, or Monday or Tuesday of the 21st, 20th or 21st of June.
Does that give you time, Rick, to fold in salaries and get ready for July payroll?
Yes, sir. We can do it. I think that it's going to be tight.
July payroll is the first.
Payroll for,
Some people are on July payroll.
but half the employees are on July 1st, July 15th, their first. But I guess I'll just say this on the no, never mind. I just kind of messed up on the Excel schedule, so therefore the didn't mess up. So the projected deficit is less than what. It's a lot less than what I have.
How much work is it to fold all 5 in that we just approved the adopted budget at the same time?
Well, I can do that.
Is that a lot of work, or is it just create 5
Well,
documents?
I need 5 documents. I gotta do
Yeah,
that.
they're already pre-populated, you're just changing one number.
Well, one number about functions.
Yeah.
I can do that.
So then if you were able to do that, we could still adopt the budget on June 6th to give you the time.
Yes. Because previously I would do that on the, three choices. I can do that, yes.
And I think we got this guy in this all helping, and maybe helping a little bit too. That's a lot of numbers to try to come. So as a team, if y'all can kind of pitch in,
We will.
get those things together, I think we, or even maybe that may or may not, I don't know.
Okay. We're gonna, if that was Rick,
Yes, sir.
are you,
Yes, ma'am.
are you good?
You're good.
Okay, I saw your brain moving. We're gonna move on to agenda item number 11, board policy and operating procedures. So real quick before we go into this, these procedures have not been updated since 2013-2014 school year. We spent several hours last fall, I think it is, updated,
July, August, and September.
discussing.
And really, we didn't discuss it according to the minutes, that's only some other things going on in those months that we went in and see and never discussed. So I went back and looked at all of those meetings, and it was just hit and miss, hit and miss. It was there.
We did the board operating procedures for hours in a team of 8 training. That is when Morgan came in, and that was in September,
But then, but she gave.
but we never approved them.
No.
Right.
And all of that, all of her,
All for the recommendations.
it was never done.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you now that we did do that, when we have something, we have spent more time, and I'm not numbers, but we spend more time back in closed session talking about Dr. Scott's contract than we have done full policy, according to our records. If you go back and look at July, August, and September, policy wasn't our top priority. But it was other things that was in it. Just
What
go
do you-
back and look.
But what do you mean by policy? We're talking about board operating
That's what I'm saying.
procedures. You're saying
It was
we're not
not,
spending time talking about our board operating procedures?
it wasn't there. It would put it in effect. And remember when she did the team of 8, we made all of these changes.
Right.
Go
And we
ahead
didn't
and
approve it.
But it wasn't ever approved.
Right,
This is
right,
just
and that's why we're doing it right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, it was never approved for, I'm not sure what reason, and I've asked James, and no one can figure out why it was not approved, so we need to approve them to where we have updated board operating procedures, and we're not operating off of 2013, 2014 board operating procedures. Is that what you're trying to
And that's
say?
exactly because we are operating both our state and local, and our local that match up with our state.
Well,
So
so
we need to look at
policy-
it, does not.
policy
It
trumps
But.
State and local are always different.
are always
Okay.
different, and they trump board operating procedures. And so we did change our policy to, are you talking about the agenda items from 1 to 2? We did change that policy. That was moved, that was motioned and moved and approved. This is specifically talking about our board operating procedures that we updated on how we as a board operate up here and the manners that we have up here and how we go forward. But policy will always trump our board operating procedures no matter what.
I was told that, by Martin, that it.
Because it's law.
Because it's law.
Because it's law,
It's law.
yes.
But, when we do this,
Yes,
and like I said, I'm not for adopting this until I'm comfortable with what's on there, and right now I'm not comfortable. And the reason I'm not comfortable with it is because when you look at local, and we have to have a sponsor to agree for me to put something on the agenda, me as a lone person here, without a sponsor, I will never have a voice unless someone opens that can of worms and I can fit in. Right now, what you need to think about as a board, me being silence for almost a year can really put this board in a bad position. So we need to rethink that. As I'm telling you, I'm there already. So let's not adopt that until we can sit back and look at it and discuss it.
But the policy has already been adopted to
It's
do
not
that.
incorrect.
The policy has already
So
been
what are we
adopted.
adopting then?
We are adopting the board operating procedures that are in your board packet, starting on page 61.
Okay, which, in that one? that
It says, the top of it says Board of Trustees Operating Procedures, and it goes through board meetings. It talks about your meeting planning preparation. It goes in the consent agenda to the meeting dates, and goes through what our whole entire meeting and how we will operate as a board.
As a board.
And then if something is not right here, then policy will trump whatever is in this document every time.
And that's what we're going to adopt, is the law.
No, ma'am.
The policy.
We're not adopting policy, we're adopting the board operating procedures, so they are different. So we have legal policy, we have local policy, and we have board operating procedures. And from me reading through all of these board operating procedures, it is explaining how we as a board, what Dr. Scott does, what we as trustees do, I mean, there's even in here an ethics, I printed it out, code of ethics. At the end, the very last one. So this is not policy. This is how we will operate as a board. So if there is something in here that is not agreeing with local policy, these are operating procedures with policy, the policy will trump it every time. Does that make sense?
No.
So a lot of Robert's Rules of Order to get us into discussion, which we're already in, I'm gonna make a motion to approve board operating procedures as presented in board.
Okay, so there's been a motion made to approve board operating procedures according to what is in our board book. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, is there, trustee Timmon has seconded, is there any further discussion?
Discussion on it.
Okay.
So.
Okay, is there,
Now's the time for discuss.
Yeah, what,
Or in
Well,
discussion.
we just need to go on, because we've been in here now, it's still not. And really, you don't understand where I'm coming from, so I need to talk to the board and these people coming to the board. That we discuss.
We can't
But-
talk about it unless we're.
Yeah.
Okay,
so now is the time to talk about it.
it's where we have to have response, and that's in my business. It is. Don't be listening.
And that agenda item is,
Developing the board meeting agenda, a draft of the agenda is prepared by the superintendent for the approval of by the board president. Any trustee may request that an item be placed on the agenda at each regular scheduled board meeting. The superintendent will review upcoming meeting dates and the major agenda items. Board members may request items to be placed on the agenda for future board meetings at this time. No item may be placed on the agenda after noon on the third working day. Placed on the agenda less than 72 hours. So what is the,
The section that she's talking about isn't in this policy, it's in the other.
it's in actual
already
policy,
adopted
it's
the
already
policy.
been adopted.
Yeah. This
we've
would
already,
be.
it's commonplace, right?
Yeah.
It's all across.
This doesn't
Okay.
say anything about having.
That's what's.
You can have a local policy that's
And you
more
can have a
strict.
state, I got
Right.
that.
You
I
can
got
have,
that.
and then your local will be more strict than
And
your state,
that's what I'm not.
and that's what we do.
And so we just need to look at both, I think. And we can't change state,
Right,
but we can adjust local. Because the local is
So-
where I am being left out.
What's leaving you out?
Yeah, there you are.
If you can't get a second, we can't discuss it. If I wanna paint all the sidewalks yellow and nobody else wants to, then I can't put that on the agenda.
Exactly,
Because I'm not even gonna get a second on it, and there's no discussion.
that's what I'm saying. I have no voice right now, none. Because when I ask for something to be placed on the agenda, no one responds.
I responded.
Yeah.
The
said,
4 items you
what
wanted
did
to talk about,
What
we
did you
talk
say?
about every month.
okay,
What did you say?
I'm gonna
You
follow
said,
up
I
point of
will
order.
talk about that Scott's contract only.
we're
And
gonna,
it's on the agenda, we talked about it.
Yeah, you jumped to that, but you didn't jump.
It was already in the
When I
agenda.
said
The
about.
LSG stuff, every single month is on the
It's
agenda,
not.
and the president called a
It is
point
not.
of order, so let's do
This
that.
is talking about morale. You cannot build morale when this board in itself is not treated and not a board of 8. You operate as a board of 7. Well, board of 6 is including y'all. No. Until we can get to that, we can't ask for morale in the district when we don't, when it's not even here on this board.
so we're gonna move forward with the motion in the second that has been made. If we want to have, if you would like to have a discussion and bring this back to the agenda, I'm happy to have that discussion with you and figure out what we were talking about and how we need to align it. Like I said, in the last meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, was if you would please bring those exact points and send those to me. So I'm happy to have that, but we have a motion on the table, so we're gonna move forward with a vote and we can revisit this if needed at a later date, on a later meeting. Is that okay?
Well, I mean, it's okay, it sounds good, but trouble with another thing, but I know right now it's not. So,
So that's a mindset, so that's a
It is a
mindset,
mindset.
and it has to, if it's gonna be a morale thing, if it's gonna be a group thing, we all have to shift.
That's
It
right.
cannot be sitting in one seat and be stuck in one seat, we have to all take a step.
And I've been sitting in this one seat for a year. So,
Right, but we
I'm
all have to step.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that just one individual, I'm saying as a group of collectively of 8 people sitting at this table, that seven of us have been elected, we all have to take a step and change the mindset to be able to work together. And I think the opportunity lies in front of us right now at this instant, and we can take it or we can leave it. So I'm offering to you to have a discussion, whether you take me up on it or not, is a choice that you can make. But at this point, I'm offering to say, I'm willing to bring this back. Let's have a discussion and get the information and let's talk about it.
Okay, according to the policy, I can make a recommendation now that says on the next meeting that we have a discussion on this. Can I do that now?
Send her an email.
And get, I mean, we can.
You have up to 72 hours, so The next meeting is June sixth. So we can have the discussion and we can add it to the agenda. Up to 72 hours, according to this, of the meeting unless an emergency or public necessity exists. So you can send an email, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you. So we will now take a vote on this board operating procedures, adopting these board operating procedures. If all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Okay, the motion passes 6-1. Moving on, we have, is there any further business, Dr. Scott, do you have anything? Okay. Anybody else have anything?
I want to thank all of our administrators and teachers for the rough week that they had this week, and parents. And I was on campus today at Team Homes, and everybody's head was on swivel. And it was an amazing academic award ceremony, and the kids are so excited, and I'm just happy that they're excited. So teachers and administrators and staff, thank you. We all did, but you guys especially.
Yes.
Close to home.
And I concur with that. Thank you all for a great school year and hope that summer is restful and we come back ready to rock and roll.
I think we've also recognized, we had, basically that we
State,
two different events.
right,
And that's something that we originally.
Right.
I think that was like 3 weeks ago.
yes,
So I just want to, it's that price. Yeah. I think they did great last year, did great again.
right.
We'll be back next year.
We'll be back next year.
Yeah, it's either June or right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Great
It was
work.
amazing.
Yes. Is there anything else? All right, is there a motion to be made to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
There has been a motion to adjourn by trustee Murray. Trustee Robinson seconds it. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. Meeting